Ashley Gattuso. I'm here today with Russ Henneberry, the founder of theCLIKK. That's a email marketing newsletter that goes out to 25,000 plus people. He is going to tell us about how that came together, what he did to grow it in that way, and also a little bit about his course that helps email newsletters find and develop their strategy. He is an international speaker. He coaches people in digital marketing, and he has a book out called Digital Marketing for Dummies. Russ, introduce yourself. Take it away.
Yeah, thanks for having me on here. This is a great topic. I love this topic. I think email newsletters are super hot right now. And yeah, Digital Marketing for Dummies second edition just hit. We just finished it. So
is that for like people who are twice as dumb?
That it is. No, it's just updated. You know, we have to keep it updated because we're in digital, so it's always changing. And so the people at Wiley were like, we need to update the Dummies book. And I was like, oh, great. But actually, it's been great and actually pretty easy to work with them and get that updated. But yeah, thanks for having me on. I'd love to talk. Let's talk newsletters.
All right, so I got hit with a Facebook like pixel ad, I'm assuming, or some kind of targeting ad that showed me like a big picture of maybe some eggs, sunny side up, that advertised this newsletter called theCLIKK. And I was like, oh, a marketing newsletter. I need to subscribe. Can you tell us how you founded theCLIKK and what strategies went behind that? We'd love for you to screen share when possible if you have some things you can show us, but just take it away and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so my background's in digital marketing. I've been doing it since the Clinton administration. So I have a lot of experience in building courses around and training around digital marketing, speaking to people about digital marketing, teaching digital marketing. I worked for a company for 5 years called digitalmarketer.com. And when I struck out on my own, I was looking at several different models, business models to roll with for my own company. So I've always been fascinated by this email first publisher model. So, you know, people are probably familiar with things like the Skim, which is a big newsletter, Morning Brew, The Hustle, and there's going to be more and more of them that are email first, right? So they're not print first, they're not web first, they're email first. They're the content appears, you know, the central place that you consume this content is within the email, and I've always been fascinated by that because as a digital marketer, and I think most digital marketers will tell you that the most powerful asset that you can get short of money for a business these days is an email address. Is far more valuable than a Twitter follower, for example, or an Instagram follower, or a podcast listener even. So why not start with email, right? Like, let's make the central focus of the media itself the actual email.
And maybe we should add an email address that is actually an email address that they check. Like, exactly. I've got my like spam stuff. I know I'm going to get spam from this brand email address.
Well, you know, that ad you mentioned, right?
Yeah.
That ad, this is just a quick tactical thing, right? That I learned while putting the CLIKK together is we use something called Facebook lead ads, which they are a type of Facebook ad where they can opt in without leaving the Facebook app. They actually opt in inside the app. We don't ask them to click across to a landing page. And what I found is I get a lot higher quality email addresses when I use lead ads because Facebook just goes ahead and populates their Facebook email into the form to make it easy for them to opt in. And so we don't get a lot of junky email addresses that are either fake or you're sort of, hey, I'm gonna opt in for this and scoot over into this inbox that I never checked.
Right, so you've significantly reduced the friction from seeing the ad to getting subscribed and getting that first issue. So you're daily, right? Every weekday?
We're daily. Actually, we run Tuesday through Friday. If we send mail on Monday, it's typically going to be a promotion for
Okay.
or selling, because we do sell stuff.
Got it. Well, why don't you share your screen if you can and show us what the click, guys, I forgot to mention that this is like an alternate spelling of click. So it's CLIKK.
Yeah.
KK?
Oh, you gotta be like cool, right? It can't just spell it the right way. This is the internet.
Yeah,
Uh,
well, you have to find a URL that like somebody else hasn't gotten to yet.
that's closer to the truth.
I was surprised that Opt-in Weekly was like out
I,
there
when
already.
you told me that, I was like, that's a good domain name. All right, well, let's, you want to look through one of the versions of, you want to look through an issue, right?
Yeah. Show people what this email looks like.
Okay. So this is a very funny subject line, I thought, that we wrote yesterday, and had a very good open rate. But I can go into why we use that subject line. It actually makes sense. But the click is set up, um, from a real tactical standpoint. The click is set up in using something that we call segments here at the click. So segments are things that feel very familiar to the reader, and they start to get into a routine, and they start to feel the brand, right,
Mm-hmm.
around the content, because it has a familiar flow each morning for them. We always open up with, if there's any kind of promotion we're doing, it's going to be all the way at the top. Right now, we're just giving away a free AdWords course on Google Ads. So that's there. And then we do, okay, today, and we sort of set the stage for what's going to be in that email. We try to open a loop, which means to create a gap between what they know and what they want to know about what's in this content. So
Mm-hmm.
opening loops is something that is pretty important when it comes to really any sort of content creation. If you can work a loop in there, it's the same reason, for example, right, that at the end of a show, they're going to leave a cliffhanger so that you want to watch the next show, right? If you're watching any
Right.
dramatic show, they're going to leave a cliffhanger, or any comedy show even these days. Like, they're very good at opening loops. And we do the same thing here, where we want to use some curiosity and things like that to kind of let them know what's in the letter and get them to kind of dig in to look for something. This subject line does the same thing, by the way. How's your meeting doing? It's like,
I
what
have
is
to open that. I have to know what weenies they're talking about. Okay, so what I would call that today loop section in my mind is like a top level teaser.
Mm-hmm. You can call it a teaser, you call it a loop,
Yeah.
you can call it what you want, but yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
exactly what it is. It's there to say, let me tease you a little bit and get you interested in what's in this email, but then we don't reveal it until deeper into the email. And it's not a manipulated tactic. It's really something we write after. This is one of the last things
Mm-hmm.
we write. It's not the last thing we write, is this. After we put the letter together for the day, we go back and write the today's section. And we're looking through the email, looking for interesting things that they might want to find in there, so that we make sure we highlight those things and get them to dig into the content.
So it's almost like a promise of what you're going to deliver.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we will reveal this right in here, and it's like, oh, I gotta dig around for that. Then the first section here, or segment, is always what we call the warm up. The warm up for me is, I want you to either smile or scratch your chin a little bit and say, furrow your brow. Like, think about something, like you find something interesting, entertaining, and inspiring, right away. And it's usually visual, or it's very short. I don't want anything heavy here, because one of the things about content on the web, especially, and anywhere, is you're taking somebody, typically when they start with your content, from dead still. You've got to get them moving through the copy, right? You got to get them moving through the content. And actually, it was one of the things I noticed about your writing, Ashley, is that you're very good at pulling people down the page a little bit, right? Like, let's not hit them with something super heavy right off the bat. We don't want to put a mountain of paragraphs in front of them or anything that looks scary. So, so we want to get them scrolling down and moving through the email, and that's what warm-up's all about.
Yeah, I like that phrase too. Like you're very like, I feel like this is an athletic event that I'm preparing for. Like this is before I go around the track. You've teased me.
Yeah.
I want to race. I'm warming up. Yeah. Okay.
And this is something that can be applied to really anything you're creating, whether it's an email or a sales letter or an ad or anything you're writing. You know, understanding that if you put a brick wall in front of people to start with, they're not, most people aren't going to climb over it today. They're just going to be like, moving on. So, you know, that's what we're looking to do here. This is just kind of like, oh, that's kind of interesting, right? Like, this isn't, so we have several scales that we look at when we decide what we include in our newsletter. And one of them is utility. This is not utility, right? This is a 0 on our utility scale in terms of like that, but like, entertaining, inspirational, interesting. It's higher interest here, and sort of, hey, that's interesting, right? Like, oh, you know, look at this history of the emoji. And a quick tangent on this is, I remember a quote from, and I can't quote it perfectly, but the guy who was in charge or is in charge of writing questions for Jeopardy, for example. Okay? He says that every question that makes the cut to get onto Jeopardy has to pass this test. It either needs to be something where the person watching the show says, oh, I knew that, or I'm glad I now know that, or I should have known that, right? If it passes all of those, any of those 3 tests, then the question passes. And we do a similar sort of thing here with when we are just putting something interesting in the email. Like, does this make the majority of our readers say, I knew that, I'm glad I now know that, or I should have known that. And if it does, it makes the cut. So that's the first segment, is the warm up, to move them down into something that typically ends up being our heaviest segment here. But again, we try to keep this thing formatted in a way that it feels consumable. You can see there are not a lot of long paragraphs here. I actually wish we would have indented that, for example, just kind of keep breaking that up. And this should have been indented, in my opinion. We break all kinds of rules in terms of grammar, formatting, all those kinds of things, if we feel like it'll improve consumption. Because our primary concern is that people are able to consume it, it feels approachable, and they're able to get something out of it.
How much thought do you put into the way it's going to look on a cell phone?
A lot.
Okay.
Yeah. Because this is a mobile business. I'm looking at this on a desktop, but this business is mobile. So everything that from our content in the email to what we sell and how our checkout works and all of that stuff is definitely mobile. It's mobile first, right? It's email first, which makes it mobile first, because really the way I consider the Click is an app for me. It's an app. The newsletter itself is an app. It just happens to live inside of your Gmail app or your Apple Mail app or whatever. And we're trying to do the same thing that any app company is trying to do, whether it's Headspace in the meditation world or Evernote or any other app. We're trying to establish a habit. We're trying to establish a situation where people open their app. It just is, it's not our app, it's Gmail. But then they go into our world, right? And they consume our content the same way that they would use Headspace or Evernote or whatever it is. We need to establish a habit. So all of that's taking place on that mobile device. And everything from the formatting to the design to the segments and the names of them We want to feel familiar so that it really feels like an app experience when you're in the click. Like you feel like you're in a place, right? When you're
Right. It's a complete experience. It's
right. Yeah.
yeah.
So there's been a lot of consideration taken, and mobile is critical. Like if you're doing an email newsletter, look at your stats. It's mobile first. It's mobile first. So let's take this segment here. The category here is big ideas. And yeah, the just to kind of put a pin in what the heck is the weenie roaster thing about. So a couple lessons here that I've learned. So 7 digital marketing principles I wish I'd learned sooner. So this is coming directly from me. I've been writing these pieces. And by the way, so we're not gonna publish all 7 of these principles in one issue of the Click. We're gonna run what we call a series. And again, that series nature increases our open rates. It opens loops, right? Okay, what's number 5? What's number 4? Number 3? So we run usually every day. There's something in there that is going to end up being there's the next part is tomorrow. The next part is the next day, and it starts to. There's a really smart email guy, Andre Chaperon, had a course on email marketing. He calls it a soap opera series, where essentially it's like the next day is the next part of the story. And there's a little bit of that going on here. But if you want to know what the weenie roaster story is, I had a consulting, or I was on a coaching call a few years ago, and somebody got on and said, we've got this great product. It's a hot dog stick, basically roaster, and it's super high quality. People love it. We've sold a bunch of them, but we're always out there hunting for customers, and we can't seem to ever grow past where we are. And my response was, who do you serve? Who do you serve? Who is your market? And she was like, well, we tend to send, or we tend to sell to campers, family campers, and people that like to, build fires outside, and outdoorsy type families. And I said, well, what else could you sell them? Right? Your business is not a weenie roasting business. Like, you don't own a weenie roaster company. You own a company that serves campers, families, outdoorsy type families. And the mistake you're making is by defining your business by your product rather than your market. And once you open your mind to the fact that, hey, we've got thousands of customers that we know are all family folks that like to go outside and hang out with their family or go camping and stuff like that. What else can we do to add value to them so that we can make, grow this business? And it's really an error that I see a lot of times. And if you watch Shark Tank, for example, you'll hear one of the sharks say, this is not a business, this is a product, right? And what that means is exactly what I just said. What they're trying to say there, and it probably gets edited out when they give the full explanation to this entrepreneur, is that your business cannot survive as a product, right? It has to survive as an entity that serves a group of people that are hungry for not just this, a weenie roasting stick, but also the myriad of other things. And you have to be able to expand into those things because it's expensive to acquire customers or subscribers or any of those things. It's expensive in time, in energy, and money. And if all you can do is sell them a hot dog stick, and then you're going to have to go out and get another customer tomorrow or another 100 customers, whatever it is. But the acquisition of the customer and that positive transaction of a good quality product, now what else could you sell them? And so getting better at upselling and cross-selling, all of which some people feel like are bad words, right? But if you look at any business, they are all, like, I'm talking about Disney, I'm talking about Apple, I'm talking about Amazon, I'm talking about every business that's go up and down the street in your town. Any of them that are successful have figured out how to upsell, how to cross-sell, and how to do all those things. So that's the weenie roaster story.
I
You
like
are
it.
not a weenie roasting business. You are a company that serves a market.
A variety of people who like weenies.
Yeah, exactly.
Excellent. Okay, so I've been warmed up and now I've roasted.
Yeah, you know, we give them a little bit of a meatier story here. And then we have this segment called Click This, which is always going to be about, hey, go look at this. Hey, go look at that. We're looking for variety in our letter. So it's, you know, this one's an e-com story. And we're, you know, again, our tone is playful. We try to feel, I guess, younger, right? But also coming across as somebody that knows what they're talking about, right? So it's not just goofiness for the sake of goofiness, but you can see like this title here, I swear to buy the foods, the whole foods and nothing but the foods, so help me Jeff, right? So this is about Jeff Bezos and Amazon and some stuff that they're doing. So we try to, you know, be playful and have fun and be interesting because our competitors, quite frankly, are not, right? Like you go read Ad Age, it's going to be really sort of more buttoned up, right? And a little more starchy and a little more professional, which a lot of people like. But a lot of our readers just say, you know what, like I love the snarkiness, I love the playfulness of the click. And so, you know, we're serving that group of people. There's a lot of people that don't like what we do and they unsubscribe. And
Okay, so you keep saying we. I have to interrupt right now and ask, but like interrupt in a non-presidential debate kind of way, like politely.
Oh my God.
Your team.
Don't get me started.
You say we.
Yeah.
Who's on the team that generates this newsletter? Like how many people are involved?
It's a small team. So it's me, right? So I would consider myself the you know, I'm the founder, the CEO, but there are three parts to this business outside of the admin side, like paying invoices and payroll and all that stuff. There's three big chunks of a newsletter business, in my opinion. There is the product, right? And I consider the product to be the letter, especially right now, right? We're very focused on the letter. That's the product that we're serving to readers. And there's that side of the business. And then there's growth, right? And growth is about, for this business right now, for my business, is about the list. How many subscribers do we have today? How many subscribers are we going to have tomorrow? What are we doing to increase the number of people we're reaching? And then there's monetization, which is how do we create a real business here where we absolutely bring in revenue rather than just entertaining people with this? How are we going to monetize this email list that we're growing and this product that we've put out? And so on the product side, I have a managing editor and I have a couple of writers, and that takes care of that, right? And we have a process around how we go about curating content, creating content, and getting it into the letter and all that stuff. That's the product side. And then we have the growth side, which is half me and half my, it's really an outside agency that handles my traffic for my paid traffic. And then I have a person that's in charge of my SEO, and that person's actually a contractor. So they're just, you know, working maybe a couple hours a day on the click to take content out of the letter and get it onto our website, apply some on-page SEO, stuff like that. And then that's kind of the extent of their position here. On the monetization side, that's all me, right? That's all me. It's me looking for people that want to advertise to click readers. It's me building courses, because that's my background, is building and training and creating information products and trainings. So we do a workshop every month that brings in revenue for the company, and you know, so that's all me over on this side. I'm doing business development most days. I'm talking to people on advertising packages, or I'm planning or building the next training course that we're going to sell to the Click readers.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, so you are running somewhat lean.
Very lean. Yeah.
But for for an almost daily newsletter and product suite.
Yeah, it's a very simple business though. There's not a lot of things outside of, and I think focus is important here, right? You can get one of these off the ground all by yourself, and I did, right? For a couple of months, it was just me. So it doesn't have to be a big team. I can see places already that I'd love to add people, and I do so first as contractors. So like I have a graphic designer, for example, too, that I work with that, you know, I pull her in when I need her, but she's a contractor and she's got other clients. I have somebody that looks at my email deliverability, is an expert on email deliverability. And so I pull her in occasionally to look at things and just pay those people when I need to. But for the most part, what I need is writers and traffic. Right? I need attention. And so the first big places I started were, how do I take the creation of the letter off of my plate completely, right? Like, so it was completely on my plate. It was something I was doing every day. I was putting the letter together. And I'm a decent writer, but I also know that there are people out there that could do a much better job. And I went and found somebody like that and put them in place to say, okay, like you start handling the bulk of the letter. I'm still involved, but that person's job every day is to get the letter out, you know, and get that thing put together and get it out of there. So that freed me up to start working on growth. So I got that going, right? And then I went and hired an agency to start taking over my traffic so I could scale it up. And now I've shifted 100% of most of my energy, not 100%, but most of my energy over to, okay, so now how do we start monetizing the subscribers that we have? You know, because we've built up a ton of equity with these people. We love them and they love us, right? A lot of them do. Like we get a lot of emails every day, like, man, you know, we just love your stuff and thank you so much for all you do and all the value you provide every day.
It's a lovable newsletter. That's what I tell people is you got to achieve lovability. Which is a book I read recently that I referenced in my last newsletter by Brian DeHoff at AHA, who talks about like this complete product experience and the signs that you are achieving lovability. And one of those signs is what you're talking about. It's people responding back and engaging in, it's scaled, but it's scaled one-to-one. Right? Email has that feeling where you can just reply and you know it's going to find its creator.
Yeah, and we even invite them to do that. This one got clipped, which is another story I go into, but it's more tactical stuff. But you know, love today's issue, hit reply, we're listening, right? We invite them to talk. And also on that, you know, we have a private Facebook group, who doesn't, right? But you know, what we would love to do, because this feels more broadcast, right? It's like, every morning you say all of this, right? But the Facebook group adds that dimension of community and of back and forthness that we want the Click to become. And so a couple months ago, we launched a Facebook group, and that's been very helpful. It's like flipping on the lights and seeing all the readers and saying like, oh, like, hey, you know, and so, you know, occasionally they'll talk about something came up in an issue, like, oh, that was interesting what was said in there. But people use it to, you know, get marketing problems solved. And so for us, the next logical place, because if you go and look at us, I mean, we're a digital marketing newsletter, but if you go look at our Instagram, we're not doing much. If you look at our LinkedIn, we're not doing much. We're not doing much on Facebook organically. We're not on Twitter. We're not doing anything. You know what we're doing? Email. That's what we're doing right now. And the next logical thing for me that I felt like was good to spend energy on with this company was a community and a group where it's like, okay, let's stand up a Facebook group using the media that we've built here with the newsletter. And so that's the beautiful thing about email first is I can stand anything up now off of this property, right? I could stand up a podcast. I could stand up a group. I could stand up an Instagram following. I could do whatever I need to do. But our focus first is the email, because it's the best place for us to get people to take action, to sell things, is still the best way to do it. And people will tell you like, email open rates are terrible. They're not all as well. Well, not when you run it like this, they're not. And if you want to get into that, we can.
Yeah. Well, if whatever you want to reveal about your open rates, I'm assuming first I'll back up and say, I think it makes total sense for the Facebook group. Especially if a percentage of your readership is coming from your Facebook ads, right? Because they're already there. So that's a place they're comfortable being. That's where they met you, quote unquote. And then, yes, whatever you're willing to talk about as far as open rates and engagement. Sure. And I like to think about that because I've been seeing high open rates, like higher than I've ever seen with opt-in. And I feel that it's strongly because people actually want what's being sent, and that it's a lot of education and a tiny bit of brand. Yeah. And I think a lot of brands get it wrong, and they do the reverse of that in their email newsletter. It's like brand. Oh, and this other helpful thing.
Right.
So I'd love to know what your experience has been.
Well, and it goes back to this idea of putting the content in the email. So there, if you want to think about it, like I think about email in two different types. There's full push email and there's partial push email. So partial push is what you see most of the time from brands. You see them saying like, hey, here's something cool. Go click here and go check it out, right? So it clicks them out of the email and gets them onto a page, whether it's an article or a podcast or a product or whatever it is. The idea is to tease them in the email and then get them to click, get them out of there as quickly as possible. That's partial push. Full push email is about putting the content in the email, right? So we're not looking for them, even though we have tons of links in here, you can see there's tons of places for them to go, but the email itself stands alone. And inside the email is value, right? It's not a tease. It's not anything. And there's nothing wrong with the concept of teasing, in my opinion. You can use partial push in the right circumstances. It's great. But when you do partial push, your email open rates are going to go down. This goes back to this concept that we want this to feel like an app, right? And when you open an app, when you open Spotify, it doesn't make you click out to go get what you need. Everything happens inside of the app, right? You can play your music, you can listen to your podcasts, you can do whatever inside of Spotify. And that's what we want to happen here. Now, we do want to get people, let people click out, but the value is in here. And that's what transforms it from, hey, it's just another promo email or another teaser email into, hey, there's the click. And it feels more like an app experience for them, and it creates that habit. And even though we send every day, right, we're still seeing 30+% open rates, which, when we're going after the people we are, which is marketers,
right,
it's really, really good. Like when we were, I've seen a lot of companies and their open rates. And when you're doing a lot of partial push stuff and you're doing tons of promos and stuff like that, for big lists, we were seeing, 5%, 8% open rate.
Yeah, it gets really depressing.
Really hurts. It really hurts.
It's painful.
It is. And even 30% it's tough to swallow. 70% of our subscribers don't open this thing on a given day, but we're very happy with the open rate. And there's even some more things that we can do to get the open rate higher, that are even outside of the product itself, but really more about deliverability and
Well,
different things like that.
you've taken the time to develop like a course around email newsletters and how people should go about doing that.
Yeah.
When you think about open rates and audience numbers and all of those factors, like what are the most important metrics that you tell people to like strategize around?
Well, if you're going to try to scale one of these businesses, you're going to probably be buying traffic, and that's going to be a major cost, right? To buy a subscriber. Right now, it's cost us about $1.50 to buy a subscriber. That's an important metric for us right now, is cost per subscriber, and it's something that I hold, our traffic agency to, is what's cost per subscriber? Is it trending up? Is it trending down? But when you take that number, which is really important, and you start applying some other metrics, your cost per subscriber is a very deceiving metric, because let's say I can get you 80-cent subscribers, but they don't open, or they open at 15%. They open at 15%, rather than your average, which is 30. Well, you just doubled my cost per subscriber in reality, right? Because now I have to buy 2 subscribers to get the impact of 1, right? So open rate is the other huge lever for us, and metric that we're watching all the time is opens. So opens, cost per subscriber, but there's so many other little levers that metrics, in other words, that can change that cost per subscriber number. So if I'm at $2 per subscriber, buying them off Facebook and Instagram, and really, if you're going to run a business like this, I want you to be thinking that way. How much does it cost to buy a subscriber? Because you can buy subscribers. Like, you go out there, buy subscribers right now. How much are they? Right? You need to know that. You need to kind of figure out that number, and it's really just a division problem. How much did I spend? How many did we get? But then you need to be looking at things like your open rate. The other thing that we're very focused on here is virality, right? So how can I take 1 subscriber and turn them into 1.1 or 1.2 or 2 or 3 subscribers? Because if I can take every subscriber that I buy from Mark Zuckerberg and turn them into 2 subscribers, I just cut my cost per subscriber in half, right? Because I'm able to on average take a subscriber, get them to share it, get them to share our newsletter, to the tune of 1 = 2. And that is a big lever right there, is virality and getting people to share.
So are you running any referral reward type program? And how has that been built, and what has the success of that been?
So I actually have another workshop at the Click called, it's about lead generation. And in that course, we teach this concept called a lead magnet. And a lead magnet is a premium piece of content. Maybe it's a checklist or a free report or something that's a little more premium, that we ask somebody to opt in and give us your email address. We'll give you this spreadsheet, or we'll give you this video training or whatever. We took that concept of the lead magnet, which is a brilliant way to build an email list. And we use the lead magnet for that purpose, to get email subscribers. But we took the same concept and we applied it to who we've already got subscribed, which is, we call this a share magnet. So what we do with these is we say, oh, we built this premium thing, this better thing, this awesome tool or whatever it is. If you want it, share the Click and get 3 people to sign up, and then it unlocks this premium piece of content. We call that a share magnet here at the Click. And we have 3 ways we use share magnets, or we have 3 different types of sharing campaigns. We have share to learn, which is using that concept of share magnet. Like, if you share this and get 3 referrals, we'll unlock this training for you or unlock this tool for you. We have Share to Win, which is a contest, right? So it's like, oh, hey, you know, like we're giving away, typically we're giving away things like courses, access to courses, or, you know, win events sort of thing. It was like, you know, tickets to events, things like that. And then we have Share to Care, which is about, you know, the more philanthropic side of what the Click is interested in and getting people to contribute to that, right? So every dollar that, or for every subscriber you refer to us, we donate X amount of dollars to this cause. And that works, you know, I was thinking that wouldn't work as well. It actually works better than the other two, is people being interested in contributing to a cause and being a part of something, right?
I love that.
Also very brand building. But we use technically we use a tool called UpViral to populate a unique link for each subscriber into the email and say, hey, do you want to share to learn? Shoot this out to your network and get people to sign up on using your referral link. And if you get to 3, we shoot them an email out of UpViral that says, okay, here's your premium piece of content. And then the same thing with UpViral can run contests. What it does is essentially just tracks how many referrals and signups people are sending. And it works really well with all the rest of our tech stack.
Nice. So I'm going to back up because I love to dive into, like, we're looking at the finished product. You're working with a team. What does the workflow to create this look like? Is it written in a Google Doc somewhere? Where are you storing ideas? How are they becoming part of this newsletter?
Right. So every morning starts with hunting, basically. So we're curating a lot, right? So we're looking for content, we're looking for interesting stories. So things that are high interest, things that are of high utility. And we're starting to pull ideas together. We use Slack to communicate back and forth. We use Trello to store ideas. So we'll store, we create cards for ideas that go into Trello. And we use tools to scour the web and find what's hot and what's cool and what's fun. And that's part of our service. It is our service primarily, is for us to say, we read 10 articles and the 11th one was awesome. Here it is, right?
Yeah.
And so
you don't have to. We read them, so you don't have to. Yeah.
Yeah, and I tell my writers that all the time. I say, when we're hunting, we are doing the work. We are doing the work, and it can be harder than creation. Curation can be harder than creation because you have to sift through the bad to get to the good. But that's what they're quote unquote paying for, right? And they are paying. They're paying with their attention, even though it's a free newsletter. They're paying with their attention, which is more valuable than any dollar could be, because we can monetize that attention eventually if we build trust and likability, as you talked about earlier. Lovability.
Yes, I'll give that book as many props as I can. I think it was very well thought through.
Yeah. So it's the workflow is and there are parts of the Click that are news. Maybe 20% of the Click is news. So it's like, hey, Pinterest is doing X or Amazon is doing Y. Like this story here is more news. So it can't be written. It can't be written in advance.
Right.
But this can, right? This is more evergreen. And so we have a lot of things built up. We have a trivia section every day. People tell us they love this, or some people say, I skip over it. But there are people that open the Click every day
for the trivia.
Just to play the trivia, right?
I love it.
And if you think about, I don't want to get off track of what you asked, but again, the variety is what we're after in our letter. It doesn't have to be that way. And there's a lot of letters that have a very, there's only one format. Maybe it's just 10 curated links. There's value to that. Ours is about value. So we want you to be able to flip through the way that old school, like flip through the newspaper, and towards the end, you get to the fun parts, the comic, the puzzle, right? Stuff in the back. Whereas the things that up front are it gets a little bit more fun as we move down the page. And the last section in your ON this is, it doesn't have to be about digital marketing at all, even though our letter's about digital marketing. A lot of times it is attached to it, but it's usually just something that makes you go, what? Like, right? And we want you to exit our letter with a smile, or with, there's so much negative stuff going on out there these days, that, one of the things I tell people is I want people to be smiling while they're reading this. I want this to be a positive experience if I can. So I got off track of what you said.
Okay, well, here I'm envisioning this. You have like a Trello board set up.
Yeah.
You're curating things. You're saving links.
Right.
Does each section have a card? Does each card have one idea? Like, how is that working out to become, at the end of the day, tomorrow's newsletter?
Yeah, and in the course that we have on theCLIKK.com called Email Newsletter Mastery, we do a whole demo of Trello and how we've got Trello set up. If you can visualize it, it's columns. The columns are the segments, right? So it's, I didn't get too much into what a segment is, but Click This has a rhythm to it. It has a format. It has a style. It has a certain type of content we're looking for that goes into it. That's a segment. It's a way of taking and formatting a piece of content and making it start to feel familiar. If you think about, for example, anybody that watches or listens to sports stuff, there's just classic about using segments. They'll take the same piece of information and drop it into a new segment. Like they might call it over or under, right? And so instead of just announcing that Mike Trout has now hit 30 home runs, right? Which is news, right? They'll say, let's put that bit of news into the over or under segment, and we'll say it this way: will Mike Trout hit 40 home runs this year, over or under, right? And then they just drop more, how many Stanley Cups will the Lightning win in the next 10 years, over or under 3, right? So you just drop new topics into the same format or segment. In this case would be over or under. Click This is that. Statistically speaking, is that, right? We're looking for it could be the same story, but if it's got some stats and stuff in it, we'll be like, let's drop that into the statistically speaking segment. All of our trivia has particular formats to it. This one's called greater than or less than, and it's just whiches are great. And then we have a number of different trivia segments that we run to keep the variety going. And then and this again is just kind of like, and this. Sometimes it's just a GIF or an image or a link over to a video or something, but we want that people to smile or really say like, that was really interesting, but it doesn't have to have anything to do with digital marketing. And so the columns on our Trello board are the segments. And then we'll look at an idea. We'll say like, okay, looks like Jeff Bezos is doing something with Whole Foods that's going to affect e-com. So where should that live? And it's like, okay, well, let's look at the story. And it's like, that's going to be best as a Click This. Let's create a card under the Click This column for this story. We jot down a few ideas, but very quickly, and drop links and any images or anything we need into that card. And then we're off to back hunting, right? And just kind of pulling things together for the day.
You're taking me back to my magazine journalism days of front of book, feature well, back of book. every idea that comes through has to be categorized as such. And I think that's what a lot of people who put together newsletters, who are building out categories, are starting to learn. Is what you've done here is created expected categories, but that deliver unexpected information. Like you don't quite know what kind of trivia you're going to get, but you expect trivia at that 3/4 mark.
Yeah, that's a good way. That's good. I hadn't thought about it that way, but that's exactly what we're doing. And we want to mix it up, because while you go in and you know you're going to have your trivia thing or your puzzle, you just don't know what the format of it is going to be, and you don't know what the topic of it is going to be.
So talk to me a little bit more about curation versus creation. You've already said that sometimes it's harder. I get that. I'm putting a lot of time into that lately. Yeah. I think that the future of marketing, that curation will be a skill set that you can bring to the table as a marketer. I'd love to know your take on having done a lot of curating and creating, where you see that going from where it is now towards the future.
Well, and I think there's even a third label we can put on an activity, which is called aggregation. And so if we take these three things, creation, we all know what that is. We're going to write a piece, we're going to create a video, we're going to create a podcast. Curation is but let's go to aggregation. So aggregation is, for me, the way I define it, is more programmatic. It's done by a tool, right? And while we use tools that aggregate, right, and there are lots of awesome tools out there that aggregate, what we believe is that it's the curation of those aggregate. So we use the tools to aggregate and pull things together programmatically, but then it's our brain and our minds and our eyeballs and our knowing of our reader that allow us to then select the right pieces to include in this museum, right? As you know, if you think about it, a museum curator, what did they do? What value is a museum, right? And the curator of that museum is to create an experience and to select the right pieces to be in that museum. And we're doing the same thing, and we feel like artificial intelligence and machine learning and all that stuff is never going to get to where, not my lifetime, get to where it's better at figuring out what my people are going to want over something else. And so aggregation, and it's typically where people's head goes when they start to look at something like this, because it's a hack. It's a way of saying, like, what if I just created something where an artificial intelligence just goes out there and builds my newsletter?
Yeah, it's going to predict what they want.
Yeah, and listen, I'm subscribed to several of those, and I think there is a place for them. They work. They do all these things. Like, if it's something simple, like I'm a big St. Louis Cardinals fan, which you have to be here, or you get dragged to the edge of town and excommunicated. But I'm a big Cardinals fan, and so real simple uses of aggregation are, I'm a subscribe to a letter that just goes in and pulls the most shared headlines about the St. Louis Cardinals into one letter, and then I'm able to just kind of consume it there. And that's a good use of aggregation. What we're doing here is much more around, it's much more nuanced. And while we could probably find a tool that would just pull in the 10 most popular by social shares or whatever, social media or digital marketing headlines, that's not what we're trying to do here. We want a more custom experience. We want to, and while we are curating things, we wrote this title, right? And then link out to this TechCrunch article, but we wrote this. So it really ends up being a hybrid of curation in the morning and then creation in the afternoon, where we're getting the letter put together and giving our take on these stories.
Sure. So you curate over coffee. and then you aggregate and or
Yep.
create in the afternoon. I want to
copy.
say aggregate in the afternoon because of the letters, but I know it doesn't follow the actual sequence. So another question that I have for you is I want you to give our viewers places to go find you. Obviously, they need to go subscribe to theCLIKK if they're into digital marketing, if they are interested in creating their own newsletters or refining their process that they use for theirs. You have a website that is your name, right? Is it just russhenneberry.com?
Yeah, so russhenneberry.com is really where people go to learn more about me speaking on stages, or I have a few consulting clients and things like that. And then just theCLIKK.com, getting subscribed to the newsletter is the best way to stay in contact with what I'm working on. Like today and over the next week or so, you'll see stories from me, but typically there are no authors of theCLIKK. Like theCLIKK is the author. But occasionally I'll dip in here and write something that comes from me and sign my name and stuff.
Got it. And so if they wanted to catch up on, like, this is number 6 of 7 in a series, like, where do they go to find, do you have like an archived issues?
Well, so what we do is, and I can show you this really quick. I'm going to end up having to jump here in 2 seconds.
I heard your reminder, so please just cut me off when you need to.
That was loud, wasn't it? So this is our homepage, right? And you go to theCLIKK.com and you opt in. But we also archive all of our articles over here. I'm not a big fan from an SEO standpoint of just putting the newsletter out there in its entirety, and that's a whole nother discussion about SEO and why I believe that. But so what we do is break pieces of the CLIKK up. For example, this story here, this series will all 7 of these will end up in one article.
Okay, so you're kind of building the article as you write the newsletter and then posting it as an article?
Yeah, and then we move it over here as an article within the next couple of days.
Okay.
Really more for the SEO, right? This will end up being an article, right? A standalone single page in our articles.
Got it.
And so with these series type things, what we do is, and we didn't have the article up fast enough from principle number 7, so we're counting down from 7 to 6, 5, 4.
Okay.
So what we would typically do here is say, if you want to get caught up, click here, and you can go over to the blog. But we didn't get the page up, so we just went to print with it without a link.
I see. So will you stop your screen share and we'll do a quick sign off so we don't have to abruptly end?
Sure.
But I just want to thank you for taking time to talk with us today. We'll put your links in the YouTube description, and I will send any questions that people send through the comments there to you so that they can kind of engage with you there. But if you have any final notes or advice or inspiration for newsletter creators beyond signing up for your course, what would that be? Well,
I think right now, if you're thinking about getting into this, this is a good model. It's a good model for several reasons, but I'll highlight a couple of here. One is you can run really lean. It's a really simple business. Focus on the content itself to start, then the growth, then the monetization of the business. And again, it's very simple. The publisher's model. You can sell all kinds of different things using a model like this. And again, this stuff gets covered heavily in our course on email newsletters, but you can sell anything. You sell advertising, you can sell physical products, you can sell software, you can sell, this model is as old as products and services themselves. You build something that people want, content, and create an audience. And then you advertise around the outside of that audience, whether it's your products, whether it's your services, your software, your info products, selling advertising to other people. But it's as old as anything else. You have to build something that people really want, right? And create an audience by creating great content. that needs to be your primary focus. Do I feel like I can build something that people really want to consume? Because if you can monetize that attention in really any way that you choose.
Right. Trust comes first.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you for spending time with us today.
It was fun.
I
I had a
appreciate
great
it.
time.